All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. I am your host, and Antonio is your host, and we are here to talk about batteries, ballrooms, bullshit, and everything in between. Hello, Tony, and hello, everybody. Thank you, Looney, and thank you, Kim, for moderating. Good to be here on a Sunday at 8 o'clock, new time. I did do a lot of sending out stuff, so we'll see who shows up, but you're all here. All
Okay.
right.
Well, I am certainly happy to be here. We have a lot to discuss tonight, as you are. And of course, with this administration, things are moving in some ways very fast. And then, of course, when it comes to moving in the right direction, this administration is moving as slow as molasses. Uh,
Yeah, really. They're in the wrong direction in everything. Oh my gosh.
So, what we want to focus on are two things. Since this is typically an environmental channel, and we've been talking a lot about politics, but here, I think in this episode, both things are going to collide here. So, obviously, with Trump 1 administration, it was a horrific administration. During the first Trump presidency, he pulled out of the 2015 Paris Accord, and he had also pulled out all of the domestic priorities that the Obama administration were pursuing in terms of climate with his Clean Power Plan. And that has left a huge vacuum in the world, and of course, here in the United States, for the development of renewables. But there has been a country which the United States was picking on a long time for being one of the world's top emitters, China, for its role in climate. But what's been most interesting about the Chinese story is the amount and level of renewable energy development the Chinese government has engaged in, really from the 2010 period on up until right through today. One of the major things that's happened in China is that almost 40% of the world's global renewable supply comes from China now, right? They're leading in solar development, they're leading in wind development, and they're also leading in next generation nuclear technology as well. And of course, the Chinese, with their 5 year plan, they've also been leading in the electrification of vehicles in China as well. And because they've been pursuing a globalized strategy through the Silk and Belt Road Initiative, the Belt Road Initiative that the Chinese have been pursuing for almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
They've really begun to flood the market with a lot of these renewables. And what we've starting to see that actually in accordance with the 2015 Paris Accord, the Chinese are actually beginning to level off in terms of emissioning, that they have actually reached peak emission and are likely starting to decline and will decline in the post 2030 period. So that is absolutely incredible news that the Chinese have really looked at this issue and saw that there's a lot of opportunity, first of all, to make a lot of progress, certainly to create new markets, right? So there's a new market for renewable energies, such as solar, such as wind, such as nuclear technology. But not only is there new markets around these energies, there's also new markets around the materials, the rare
The
earth
minerals.
minerals that are now necessary to ensure that these markets are able to flourish and that these technologies are able to develop. And China is by far and away leading in negotiations, trade negotiations, not just with our allies, the European allies, our Far Eastern allies, such as Japan, such as South Korea, such as the Philippines, but also in countries where we don't have a lot of trade experience, and that's in the Middle East and
Yeah.
in Africa. And China's going as far reach as South America as well with a lot of these deals. I'll be forthright and very honest. I am a Chinese investor. I do invest in Chinese energy companies. One of the companies one of the
Really?
well, yeah. I mean, I told people this 5 years ago because the Chinese are very serious. Their policymakers are very serious about these things, and the Chinese have what we call a long-term vision and short-term strategies to achieve those long-term goals. And they update and reassess these with a national plan every 5 years. We don't have anything like that happening in the United States. One of the companies that I'm invested in is NIO Neo. Of course, I'm not saying that for other people to be invested, but just so you understand my level of commitment here with the Chinese progress when it comes to the electrification of their transport system. And what's very
You're
interesting
young.
about
Hmm.
this is they're answering the question about chemical battery storage capacities. They're answering the questions about range anxieties, the development that's going on with a lot of these battery technologies. We're starting to see some vehicles get over 1,000 miles per charge.
Oh my
Most
God.
cars, most cars, when you on a 12 to 15 gallon vehicle, will get you somewhere between maybe 350 to 500 at most miles on a tank. So this is absolutely incredible. We're seeing battery swap technology being deployed in China, where cars drive into these garages and their batteries are swapped within minutes, and they get an entire. I mean, it's absolutely incredible the rate of advancement that's happening in China, while we are still lagging far behind
Far behind.
with ICE vehicles. And of course, under the Biden administration, when we were passing the Inflation Reduction Act, there was funds for over $500,000 in, or excuse me, 500,000 electric vehicle chargers that were supposed to be developed here in the United States. Of course, now that's been poopied down the drain. That's been
Yeah.
flooded.
Poop. Wait, wait. We got our first flush. We're flushing American ingenuity. Bye bye. Yeah. First flush of the day. Look at that. Bye bye. Yeah. Really, you're right. We flushed it. We're circling the drain in the United States, unfortunately.
And it's really sad because the United States certainly does have the technological capabilities. We certainly do have the industrial capacity. We could certainly invest in those things, much beyond even what the Inflation Reduction Act was going to do. But with the Trump administration, with this administration, we're going completely in the opposite direction. And we're really ceding so much of the future to the Chinese. We're going really big in AI. But China has an all of an above approach when it comes to the development of these next generation technologies.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, with global trade and through history, is the United States responsible for China being as advanced as they are? Because years ago, of course, they were not. And we gave them all the business to make all the shit. We wanted all the cheap stuff. And that's where they made all their money, the Chinese?
So it's there's a lot of dynamics going on here, but essentially you can argue the story started when President Nixon, the Republican in the United States, went over to China and
Yep.
tried to
I
liberalize the
remember it.
Chinese.
Yep.
And this opening of China did introduce them to Western style markets, but they were kind of on the tail end of this. They were the factory for the world, primarily at that time the United States, but increasingly the world. But what this allowed the Chinese to do is to develop the basis for high capacity industrial technology. And they began taking that profit and reinvesting it in education, in infrastructure. And what we've seen is an absolute explosion in the Chinese GDP, which was completely marginal in the 1980s, to now the Chinese are second largest economy in the world to the United States and will soon surpass the United States. Um, so yeah, you certainly can pinpoint or start the ontology of the Chinese economic explosion with the Nixon administration opening up the Chinese to Western liberalization.
Yeah, you're right. But I remember also, well, Hong Kong is not China, but my stepbrother
Well, it
lived,
is now.
yeah,
It is
I mean,
now.
it wasn't when my stepbrother was there. My
Yeah.
stepbrother was in technology, lived in Hong Kong, and he was building, his company was the company that had the big billboard in Times Square that you see in
Yeah.
Times Square. That was his company at the time. So I guess with others, but I mean it. And he has a Chinese wife, and his son has a Chinese wife. My parents went to the weddings in China at the time. You know, it wasn't. It was a few, several years ago. Obviously, my father passed away, stepfather passed away, but we had good relationships, and we had people when I was in the university. We had Chinese researchers and Chinese students come over and work with our researchers and our students, and it was a good relationship for a while. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into the relationship, what's happening now under the Trump administration?
Well, of course. So the relationship between the United States and China has been deteriorating for some time because already the economic trade imbalance that was happening between the United States and China, right? And you're absolutely right. American entrepreneurs, the American business elite, thought that in this relationship that they were developing with China, that China was essentially going to be their industrial waste basket, and that they were going to continue to take on the managerial role in this relationship. But that is increasingly not the case. Just ask Apple, Tim Cook, ask Tesla, Elon Musk, who has the managerial relationship today when it comes to Chinese business and doing
Wow.
business in China. Is it the American businesses or is it the Chinese government? By far and away, it's the Chinese government, right? It is the American companies that are doing everything they can to make sure they continue to have access to the Chinese markets, not the other way around. But what's happened is that even under the Democrat administrations, the relationships becoming increasingly antagonistic. But under the Trump regime, it's become extremely antagonistic, of course, not just the Chinese, but with the rest of the world, right? With this barrage of tariffs the Trump administration has released against not only the Chinese, but of course also our allies and other trading partners. So it's become very difficult and strained the relationship between the Chinese
Yeah.
and the United States. States. And you've seen there's been a tit for tat in the trade war policy in the tariffs now between the Trump administration and
Yeah.
President Xi in China. So we would continue to see that that relationship will intensify in terms of how connected they are. And there is some untangling that's happening in both countries now. And this is particularly dangerous. In my field, political science, we understand that countries that have intricate trade relationships with one another are much more likely to actually engage in hot wars with one another.
Hmm.
And because now the Chinese and the Americans are decoupling their economies, it is increasingly likely that as they do that, military tensions between the countries will also continue to rise. The Chinese have been very strategic about this as well. Particularly on the economic front, they have already moved to sit down and have trade negotiations renegotiated with the Japanese, with the South Koreans, and with the Philippines as well. I mean, these are, again, top and historical U.S. trading partners and military alliance partners following the Second World War and the post-World War order. And we've used those countries to great strategic defense against the Chinese, and of course, the Chinese know that. And they've taken this opportunity, the destabilization of the Trump administration, to rework geopolitics in the Asian Pacific.
Well, I have a question too. Do you think that now, with all these tensions, people just like my brother, my stepbrother, and his son, who both married Chinese women, do they have anything to worry about with their wives who have visas that came
Well,
over?
of course, this administration, my God, we saw that South Korean workers who are here on work visas were chain walked. And again, the relationship that we have with the South Koreans is historical. It comes out of the legacy of the post World War,
Mm-hmm.
and we've never seen South Koreans protest at the U.S. Embassy in South Korea like we have recently under the Trump
It
administration.
was just yesterday, and they were sitting down with big. So I didn't take any clips. I'm sorry, I didn't have a lot of clips. So I just made my goofy intro video, but they were sitting down in South Korea with no Trump signs. I mean, but of course, all over X, they were highlighting that Trump was standing there when he got off the plane doing his little YMCA dance. But it's very, very precarious. And is he going to see Xi on this trip?
Well, this is what's been absolutely phenomenal, of course, is because the United States under the Biden administration was doing the pivot to China, really the pivot east, out of
Mm-hmm.
the Middle East. We were ratcheting down. We got out of Afghanistan, and our resources, our military resources, our diplomatic and political resources were moving to China. But what's happened is that because of the Trump administration just has no aim, no direction other than to be a bully on the international stage, China's really taken this opportunity, as I say, to renegotiate geopolitics in the Asian Pacific, and with our own top leaders asking the Japanese and South Koreans to come to the negotiating table with them, and this is going to be incredible the way that this strategically impacts the United States because China is really trying to rewrite the world order in such a way as to essentially exclude the United States from international politics.
And it's not it's Trump's fault. I mean, it really is from his first term to now.
And while it is true that we can blame a lot of this, Trump certainly is a catalyst. Unfortunately, even dating back, of course, the Bush administration with the illegal invasions in Iraq and Afghanistan, the challenges that it posed to the international system,
Mm-hmm.
the Obama administration's failure to negotiate trade relationships with the developing world, but instead
Ah.
building out military bases and carrying out drone assassination campaign. So the United States has been going in the wrong direction for a long
A long
time.
time.
This is what Christopher Hedges describes as the deterioration of the empire. We are at the end of our empire, and that's what this looks like. But under the Trump administration, we're seeing a sort of warp drive, a
It seems like it.
hyperdrive of the deterioration of American political hegemony around the world. And what that's allowed the Chinese to do is negotiate infrastructure projects in Africa,
Yep.
the securing of those rare earth elements and minerals around the world. And this is going to be important for maintaining the Chinese strategic and technological edge over the US. And they're certainly going to need to do that because the United States, of course, its military spending, and that's how the United States is going to try to continue its competitive edge against the Chinese, realizing that we're not going to be able to keep up with them in terms of economics, realizing that in terms of civic technologies, we won't be able to keep up with them either, but we will be able to keep up with the Chinese for some times in terms of our military arrangements.
Wouldn't it have been nice to have a good, cohesive relationship? I mean, even though they are the Chinese Communist Party, as I remember, one gal that was with us at the university, she was with the Chinese Communist Party, became a very, I've talked about this before, we became very good friends. My boss used to say, be careful, she's with the Chinese. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We talk about life. And then when she went back to China, I bought her car. But I mean, we've had such good relationships. We had such good relationships with these people, with these researchers and these people that came over. I mean, you know, uh, they would. I remember one gal, one Chinese researcher. She in her apartment. She taught us all how to make uh, um, wonton. I mean, just great things. It was wonderful time. And now that's none of that is happening here, is it?
Well, all of that's going in reverse because remember, you have to understand at the core of whatever we can make out of the Trump administration's ideology is anti-multiculturalism, is anti-multilateralism, it's anti-international cooperation. And that's why I think in the United States, instead of building new trade deals and negotiating relationships and doing things of that nature, instead we're committing acts of international terrorism in the
I
Gulf of the
know.
Americas and in Latin America. We're now threatening a ground invasion of Latin American countries. Of course, we've already threatened military actions against our northern neighbors in Canada and also in Greenland. So the United States is just rapidly deteriorating and destabilizing. And at the same time, of course, we're
Insane.
threatening military action against our own cities and our own
Our own
state.
cities. Yeah, we are definitely circling the drain, it feels like. I have a question already. I want to put this up because I thought it was interesting. Hi, Christine. Doesn't it seem like everybody's economy is about to get flushed? US, China, Russia, all facing financial cliffs.
Well,
Good
I don't
question.
think that that's true at all. I think that
Who she's asking?
economies certainly are facing different crises, different issues. One of the major problems that China is facing, for example, is that even with the buildup of all this renewable energy generation, there's not been the appropriate expansion and updating of their electrical grid to actually to maintain that capacity and to effectively and efficiently use that renewable energy capacity. So that's been quite problematic in China. In the United States, our economy would actually, if it weren't for the Trump administration, be doing well. All things tell us that before we got into the Trump regime, we were starting to see a reduction in the annualized inflation rate. We were looking at nearly full time employment. But now, under the new Trump regime, under this regime of tariffs, we've seen all that now go in the reverse. In fact, the only thing that's maintaining the U.S. economy at this point is the build out of data centers, which represent almost 50% of U.S. GDP, in large response
That
to, of course,
much?
it's absolutely
Holy
incredible,
crap.
the year over year GDP. But nonetheless, that's been in response to the build out of these data centers for AI capacities in the United
Yep.
States. So the United States economy, of course, is very precarious, and that's not necessarily true of other economies around the world.
Jeez. So let's talk about minerals a little bit because I had sent you a list that I had compiled. But the top countries now, of course, in at this channel, we don't like, and I mean, we talk about it. We're talking about it. No energy is clean. No energy is green. I mean, really, that's a fallacy. Every energy is destructive. Everything
Yeah.
will destroy the planet. We are watching it. It is happening. That aside, we're looking at these countries, and the list that I had procured had the summary for minerals, which is the critical minerals race. That's a big thing, and people have been talking about it in the chat. And it was for the so-called clean energy technologies, batteries, solar panels, wind turbines, and how it is it's ranked on their roles in production, reserves, and processing capacity. So it's 2024 data, but it was China, United States, Australia, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Indonesia, Canada, Chile, Brazil, South America. So those were the rankings, but then Argentina, Russia, and the European Union. If Ukraine didn't make the top 10, although that's one of the things that Tommyist had mentioned in the chat, that Ukraine, but Democratic Republic of Congo, let's say they're number 4 because of cobalt. I mean, there's all of these different kinds of minerals. And what I want to ask you about this question is China working on reducing the need for, or is anybody working on reducing the need for mining and the destruction that comes with all of that? I mean, fossil fuels are destructive enough. What do you
So,
think?
not in any direct capacities. Countries simply, I mean, it's hard enough for them to even accept the nature of the global climate crisis, lose these other ecological crises that industrial civilization has created. And we absolutely are seeing a mad dash for rare earth elements everywhere. This is one thing I used to tell the fossil fuel group. I'm forgetting what they're called, but peak oil, peak gas, all of that stuff. Think about this idea of going out to space and grabbing an asteroid and mining it for all of its earth, rare earth. Well, I guess they aren't rare earth at that point, but you know what I mean, given the fact
Yes.
they're on asteroid. Well, essentially, Earth is a magnificently large asteroid hurtling through space with immense amounts of these elements and materials.
Mm-hmm.
And countries now realizing that they can profit off of them immensely are pursuing them nearly at all costs. And of course, environmental costs, the destruction of indigenous lands, the destructions of natural resources, natural
Mm-hmm.
lands, wetlands, whether they be national forest or mountains. They're pursuing these things, and there's not been a lot of international cooperation on how we can safely and maturely develop these resources. And even the Chinese have not pursued what I would consider, satisfactory policy in this direction. Now, there have been advances on the types of energies that we are pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving from lithium ion to sodium ion technologies will have less impact on the environment in terms of securing these resources. But on the whole, no, we've not seen a
Okay.
coordinated strategy
Not yet.
for making sure that these things are developed with environmental consciousness, that they're environmentally safe.
I had such a great meme and I can't find it. It was perfect. It was an asteroid meme. It was at the end of my intro video, but I guess it's just
You know,
not
one of the
here.
things that worry
Maybe it
me
is.
is that as we're developing a lot of these new technologies, we're also developing these technologies in a world where our infrastructure is being increasingly impacted by the changing planet. And one of the things that worry me is that, especially with China, and I wish I
Mm-hmm.
would have done more research into this, but when they're experiencing mass flooding events, those electric cars are absolutely destroyed. And I know in the
Yeah, we've
U.S.
seen that.
Yeah, and I know in the U.S. case, what's happened in a lot of these instances is that saltwater erosion will begin to break down and corrode these battery materials, and even weeks later, these cars will start fires, have battery fires, and these fires are extremely difficult to put out. So that's also a concern that I have is that these new technologies that we're developing, whether they be solar, whether they be electric vehicles, when they're destroyed, they leak immense amounts of toxins into the environment, into the air, into the water, and into the ground. And also, they obviously have hazards that we've not really yet to deal with, right? Fire
Oh, I know.
fire departments that live in areas that have more electric cars are being trained on how to deal with electric car fires because that's not something they've been used to. So when we start to see things like that, it's not a reason not to pursue electric vehicles or things of that nature, but it's also just something to have in mind because we're not pursuing electric vehicles, we're not pursuing the development of these new technologies in a background where uh, the design basis assumes less climate interaction. So that's something to have in mind as well.
Did you want to look at any of the articles that we had?
So we did have a couple of articles there specifically talking about, or at least the ones that I put up were specifically talking
Do you want me to
about.
pull them up?
Sure.
All right, let me change the screen. Let's look at these because we had a couple of I thought they were good and they helped me write the intro. So let's oil price. That's always I've used them before. How China took over the world's clean energy boom. And so it gives you well, why don't you talk about why you chose this?
Well, I think it was important for people to understand that, as we're talking about peak emissions, and we're talking about peak energy usage, we are seeing a drastic change in the amount of renewable
Mhm.
energies that are coming onto the market. And China, by far and away, again, is leading that. And what we're starting to see is that renewable energy capacities are coming in par and parity with oil, gas, and in coal. Yes, there are, of course, new coal-fired power plants that are coming online in China,
Mhm.
but not nearly at the rate that was estimated just 10 years ago. And what we're starting to see is that as we get past the 2030 timeline, that we're going to start to see renewables not only make up a half or a competitive half of the new energy generation, but we're going to start to see they make up the plurality of energy generation in China. And this is particularly good because, as I say, they continue to flood the international markets with these technologies as well.
Now here there it's talking about China's electrotech is becoming the basis of the new energy system with continued cost reduction driving faster growth than ever, like you said. But that was in emerging economies. You said that. But then oil and Russia says it's boosting their oil production, which is exactly what the United States wants to do by opening up Anwar again, opening up Alaska. But like the first Trump administration, we opened Alaska, and did we not get those leases? People
Well,
didn't
we
take the leases because it was so difficult.
Well, yeah, and this is a problem. Is that for a lot of countries, the United States, and that's why there's been a lot of talk about right the invasion of Greenland, and the invasion of Canada, to try to get these more hard to reach energy resources, fossil fuel
Yeah.
energy resources. But part of the problem is that there's a couple of things happening. The global economy is continuing to expand. And while it's also true that renewable energy generation capacities are increasing across the global economy, so too are capacities for fossil fuels. And so we sort of have a pursue all the above strategy in terms of of the globe. And this does give countries like the United States, countries like Russia, room to still increase their oil markets because those markets are still very flushed in terms of international engagement. And countries do want to get their hands on cheap fossil fuel energies, if
Yeah.
only to use those energies to develop next generation energy generation technologies such as solar, wind,
Right.
and nuclear.
I'm going to read this one. Beijing is shifting toward market based energy pricing, phasing out subsidies, and introducing mechanisms like balancing payments to align renewable power with global market forces. Can you talk about that a little?
So this is something that, in the United States, we're no longer subsidizing green energy. The Chinese are really good at ensuring that they're subsidizing green energy. But
Mm-hmm.
now what they're trying to do is determine, have we gotten to a point where some of these technologies have created markets of their own, and without too much government interference, can they maintain sustainable price equilibriums in their own individual markets? So this will be an interesting thing to see in China.
Yeah.
That these markets, that these technologies are able to maintain and increase market share,
Mm-hmm.
and also we continue to see research and development into these technologies without less with less government intervention and less government direction. This is a criticism that the United States entrepreneurial class and its business elite have had of the Chinese, that they're not as free market based. But what's interesting, as we were talking about earlier, you mentioned Hong Kong. Well, when the Chinese had fully, taken the Hong Kong back, what happened was that in the years leading up to that, they created what they called these economic free zones,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, where Shenzhen's one of them, Shanghai's another. They would build these free zones where they have different liberalized policies. And what they've shown is that with a degree of liberalization and
Mm-hmm.
a degree of a command economy, they can really create formidable policy in China. And so that's what I think this is in part about.
Okay. And electrostate. It's a word that I had not really been
Well,
that familiar
because
with it, but
it's the opposite of a petrostate,
yeah,
right?
electrostate.
Where the basis of the economy is based off of fossil fuels. Here we're seeing the possibilities of decoupling in industrial capacities and fossil fuel use, and we're starting to see a transition, right, to another source of baseline energy
Right.
for the economy. And it's going to be the electrification of infrastructure, the electrification of transportation, the electrification of energy generation.
Wow. All right. The next one that you had sent me was oh no, I had brought this up. This was just a climate action tracker, but it was actually this one is it's not so much energy, it's emissions. And
Mm-hmm.
this one, China's emissions stabilized at near record high levels in 2024 following a sharp increase in fossil fuel consumption in 23 after lifting of zero COVID policies. Now, the country's energy transition continues to reflect two seemingly opposing trends: rapid employment of renewables, surpassing the 1,200 gigawatt solar and wind capacity target 6 years ahead of schedule, and a surge in coal power construction, which you talked about, but we'll get in a little bit more, with 2024 marking the highest level in a decade because they had a permitting boom. Now, their oil demand declined in 2024 as transport electrification advanced, while the projected rise in fossil fuel gas use undermines its transition to net zero and alignment with a 1.5C. But they say here that they're nearing their peak if they have not all already, and the path ahead remains uncertain, hinging on energy and emission targets to be set in China's 2035 NDC pledged by Xi Jinping for submission before COP30. So we'll talk a little bit about China. I'd like you to do that, talk about a little bit about China and COP30. But they here they're saying they're off track So even though they are, I'd like you to talk about that a little
Well, of
bit.
course, there's always it's not clear cut ever,
Right.
but the Chinese have made remarkable progress. It is true that after the lifting of their COVID policies, what we found, and this is what I mentioned earlier about
Mm-hmm.
problems with the Chinese grid, is that the Chinese grid, of course, is older than a lot of the renewable energy technologies that they've been able to develop. They've not caught up with chemical battery energy storage technologies to help with the offload with their grid. A lot of
Okay.
their grid is still connected to fossil fuel resources, and because of the
Intermittency. Intermittency. Yeah.
intermittent yes, of renewable energy, what's happened is that there still is a very large need for fossil fuels in their economy, and they continue to develop those resources as well. So it is, as I stated, not only for the globe, but also for China in all of the above approach strategy. But the difference is with the Chinese is that they see there is a lot of market opportunity in the development. It's being the leader in developing renewable energy technologies because the Chinese missed out in the last century when it comes to bedrock fundamental technologies, right? So when it comes to cellular devices,
Mm-hmm.
that belongs to Apple and Samsung. When it comes to the development of vehicles, that belongs to the United States, Japan, and the EU.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to these computer chips, that belongs to Taiwan. And so the Chinese have to essentially carve out a space for them in the global market. And what the Chinese want to do is specialize in development of battery storage. What they want to do is specialize in electric vehicles, solar panels, and things of this nature. But as they're also specializing, they do have a backbone economy they have to maintain. They still have to meet energy requirements and needs for their increasingly large population, or the population that's still becoming industrialized, right? So many Chinese are still moving to the middle class, and because you see such a large number of Chinese
Right.
still moving to the middle class and becoming increasingly affluent, their energy requirements, the energy intensity of those
Of
requirements
course.
continue to go up.
Up, up, up.
Um, so, as I stated before, we are going to see new coal-fired power plants come online across China, particularly in northern China. But what I think that people need to understand is that it's very unlikely that those coal-fired power plants will come online to full capacities, or that they will live the entirety of their dates. Because what we're going to continue to see, what I hope we'll continue to see, is that the global energy infrastructure will continue to move toward renewable, and that will create less and less of a space for oil and gas.
Okay. And it's, of course, it's true that the United States is not going to let electric vehicles from China come in here.
And there's a lot of
Spe-
national security reasons why that also is true.
ah, very good.
Um,
Okay, let's hear it.
yeah, remember, electric cars are essentially iPhones on wheels. So there's an immense amount. Well,
iPhones on
essentially,
wheels. Yeah.
um, there's a immense amount of data that comes with these vehicles on the move, and there are national security concerns having these devices that, which essentially, I'm going to be very honest, the Chinese would most certainly bug, and they would be getting a lot of on the ground information from the United States. And we've certainly see the Chinese have done things like this in their infrastructure arrangements with of developing countries. So I think in that sense, the United States definitely should be concerned about Chinese products entering into the U.S.
Okay.
market, particularly these highly technologically advanced products like electric vehicles.
Or ham radios, because somebody just made the comment about I have a set of ham radios, and I think they are Chinese. Of course, I haven't used them yet. Like I said, I've been telling everybody I the book is it's so dense to get through all of it to learn it, but I do have them. Are they
Yeah.
going to
Well,
be
I'm
something I
I'm
can't
I'm
use?
legitimately worried. I mean, people think I'm just pro China. I'm not pro. I don't
No,
actually describe myself.
you're being you're giving us facts and data. You're
Well, that's what I
talking
was going to
about
say. I
yeah,
don't consider myself pro any country. That's not how I view the world.
right.
But I do recognize that the Chinese administration is much more serious than the American administration on every single public policy question.
Right. So tell me, let's let me look at the last one that you gave me, and this was actually from Bay Street, which is probably an energy publication, but this was the Globe and Mail. So this is what UK, right? And
Yeah.
they were talking about this was pretty dense. Why don't you explain what this one was about before we
So this one was speaking specifically about the type of trade relationships and negotiations that both the United States and China. So as I've stated before, the tariff regime that the Trump administration has put on, not of course just the Chinese, but our own trading allies and partners, has really mixed up international relations. And in part, what this goes to show is that what the Americans are trying to do is undercut the Chinese ability to establish these markets by putting on excise taxes and extra duties on the imports of these materials in a way as to deter these countries from adopting them because, of course, the exporters are Chinese. And what this has been doing is actually pushing these countries further into Chinese hands and further out of American hands, of course. And so that's why I think it's been so critical that the Chinese understand what's happening right now. So they don't only see themselves in a trade war with the United States, but this is also an opportunity to really rewrite the way the international order, the way that countries see themselves in relationship with China and the United States. And because the trade war has been going on, because the United States is trying to deter Chinese influence, and one of the ways they're doing this is trying to make it more difficult to get these next generation energy generation technologies in countries like Thailand, in countries like Malaysia, that is making it more difficult for those countries to have that solid block and have the diplomatic dependency that they used to have with the United States. And so the Chinese are using the trade strategy to also reorient global politics here. And I think the United States, unwillingly, doing the same thing. They're not trying to. I think they're just trying to deter Chinese influence. But in an attempt to deter Chinese influence, they're actually deterring U.S. influence around the world.
yeah, I can see that. Now, there is it says in here that for years, battery systems have only played a marginal role in U.S. electricity networks, with power utilities focusing more on building out capacity from natural gas, which we know, and pipelines and all, than and some maybe some, but it's 5 years ago the United States had 75 times more wind farm capacity and 30 times more solar capacity than battery. But cost declines coupled with rising energy density levels have encouraged utilities to ramp up their battery installations. So, can you talk about that battery installation for, let's say, a power company? We've seen wind farms all over, but what does it look like?
So
For
this is part of the problem that I mentioned with the Chinese grid
yeah,
is that as they're developing their grid, they haven't caught up in terms of battery chemical energy storage, and that's going to be a necessary component in developing these next generation grids
right.
because of the intermittency of the solar energies
Mm-hmm.
and wind energies that they're going to need to onboard these energy capacities so that they can use them when they most need them. So, for example, obviously, with solar energies, when the sun isn't shining, how then can we still use those energies? Well, if we're able to store that energy during the day in chemical battery storage. Now, we have been seeing an immense build out of chemical batteries,
Mm-hmm.
but chemical batteries are not only just being used for storage of energy generation, but they're also obviously being used in electric cars. And so what China's trying
Right.
to use, what China's trying to do is go from to battery to grid technologies. And so you're starting to see that even with the battery swap technologies, that these batteries are able to re-put energy back into the grid.
Okay.
But this is very complex, and it needs a level of development that just isn't there yet. You see more development in tier five cities in China that are
Okay.
more experimenting with this. But on the whole, most cities don't have the capacities for this, and they need significant upgrades in their energy grid infrastructures in order for this to be compatible.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move on to now. This is more consumer batteries. And this is a company called Fossibot, which I recently received a beautiful 3600-watt Fossibot gift from someone that I don't think wants to say who it was, but this is uh these are the brands we're familiar with in the United States. Now, this is home battery or backup battery systems, not necessarily powering your house yet. Jackery, EcoFlow, which I do have a 2400-watt EcoFlow also upstairs. Bluetti, DJI, and Fossibot. So this is a recent article, and they're talking about portable power. But these batteries all come with, you can buy other batteries, you can tie them into your power. You can get the solar panels, but they're portable. They're not the house solar panels, which I think should be,
Yeah, I was going to say, so
yeah,
this is a bit of a different technology than
yeah,
what I was talking about.
right,
Primarily, the technology that I'm talking about is going to be used with energy utility,
yes,
and would not be something that you would be able to personally
right.
purchase.
But this is drilling down to where all of these, this is becoming popular, much more
Right,
popular
right.
in the United States.
Right,
Yeah,
you are starting to see a proliferation of these retail
yes,
commercial products as well. Certainly so, absolutely. As you mentioned before, because of those cost declines, those cost curves going down, and
yeah.
as we see those cost curves going down, we will continue to see a proliferation of these technologies. Certainly,
And I love them.
in commercial and retail sectors as well.
I think, but you know how I feel. I love them. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for people. There's so many more people that are looking at having these kinds of things. Mine are for backup, and the power where I live does go out quite often. I am not in the position to have a solar installation, obviously, at home. I mean, that would take solar panels out of my property and all. But I would like to see, in a perfect world, in the United States, nationalized energy. I would like to see
Well,
every home have.
sure, but we won't be really doing anything progressive on energy policy, at least for the next 3 or so years in the United States. We're going to be going in the opposite direction. And, we will mention the ballroom because we did talk about batteries in the
Oh, well, we're
ballroom.
gonna do that. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's the next
Um,
part.
but yeah, I mean, the United States, it's really, really sad that we certainly, I don't think the United States will win out over the course of this century. I do think the Chinese would ultimately still win out, but we could have at least been a very competitive partner in a lot of this. And it's so sad to see that instead of moving forward, instead of having our own American brands when it comes to electric vehicles and solar and next generation nuclear developments, we're building a ballroom.
Yeah, we're
So,
building a ballroom. Um, actually, the Chevy has the Bolt. I think it's the
oh my
Bolt.
gosh,
My
I you
daughter
know
says it's
I
not. And she
no,
works for a car dealer, so she's
yeah,
yeah.
no. American cars, when it comes to electric cars, are in so much trouble. And I was telling my brother this because he's
That's
in the car
sad.
industry here in the United States. He's a financing officer.
And my
I told him,
daughter's a
so
warranty administrator. Yeah.
so there you go. And I was telling him part of the problem with these legacy autos is that they already have so much investment in the current ICE technology, And a lot of those investments, a lot of those patents, a lot of that intellectual technology, it's for the next for the next decade or so. And so they're spending immense amounts of money on a technology that's going out the door. But as they drag their butts on this, it's allowing other countries that have already have a lead make a much larger lead. And so I'm actually afraid that Americans, just like today, Chinese ICE vehicles are not very popular in the world, right? They're regular cars, not very
Well,
popular.
because they're small and they're just
And
utilitarian, and Americans want the big, gaudy, showy bullshit.
but they're also coming onto the market late, right? There are a whole host of different cars, whether they be luxury cars, whether they be sport utility vehicles, whether they just be everyday cars. It doesn't matter. You can get your German high-end brands if you want. You can get your Korean and Japanese brands. And so it's really hard for the Chinese to have a market share when it comes to doing what everyone else already does. And that's why it had to cut itself out a new part of the pie, these electric vehicles. And
Okay.
my fear is that for the United States is that we're not in the development of electric vehicles. We have two all electric company cars right now,
Mm-hmm.
or I think three, but Tesla, Lucid, and Rivian are the American one.
Rivian. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not that big. They're not getting a lot of supports from the government right now. Tesla, of
They
course, did.
were.
I was going to say Tesla, of course, was at one time, especially under the Obama administration and somewhat under the Biden administration. But a lot of those credits for their vehicles have been rescinded now under the Trump administration, and a lot of the industrial backing and subsidy as well for the development of these vehicles has also been pushed withdrawn. We won't be building out the infrastructure for these vehicles, so for a lot of people, they're just annoyances for the
Yeah.
rich. And so the United States is lagging far behind the Chinese. And by the time that we actually get into the game, the Chinese are going to be on generation two, generation three, generation four electric cars. So this is going to be a problem for the United States, and we're not going to be able to maintain a domestic base for our vehicles because the domestic market is already oversaturated, and we're going to be selling less and less of our vehicles to the rest of the world, especially now that we've lashed out against the world with these tariffs. So it's already bad that we had bad industrial policy, bad trade policy, but all of that's gotten worse, of course, with the tariff policy.
All right. Well, before we go over to the ballroom, I've got a few things highlighted. I mean,
Are we going to be Are we going to be
the
ballroom
we're going to be
dancing?
ballroom dancing. It really isn't much that I wanted to talk about, just how
Yeah.
ridiculous it is. But let me uh, put a few up. I'll give China credit for that. Nothing else. They are not friends, and they are bad actors. I guess for that was from the beginning for being, you know, I mean, bad actors. Every country has their bad actors.
I
I
mean,
mean,
this is,
but
and I don't want people to get the impression that no.
you're not a
The thing
commie.
is, I'm a realist here. I
Yeah.
understand what the Chinese, for example, doing with the Uyghur population is an international abhorrency. It's an
Mm-hmm.
international abomination. Of course, I condemn the Chinese. I condemn the Chinese for bullying the Taiwanese in
Mm-hmm.
their military provocations and threats against the Taiwanese. And also, I condemn the Chinese for their provocations, their
Right.
exacerbations in the Ukraine crisis as well. So it's absolutely not true that I think that the Chinese. Yeah, I was about to say that
Yeah.
too.
It's
They're
about
not
the
communists.
it's about the
That's
leadership.
yeah. They're not even communists.
Yeah.
They're state authoritarian, semi-illiberal democracy of whatever. They're
Well,
not.
go
They're
on social
state.
media. Every and you'll
Yes,
see what
they're statist is the term that they are.
that's excellent.
Um, so they believe in huge state control of their economy. But either
Mm-hmm.
way, I don't see the Chinese as being angels on the scene. It's just that they are so much more serious, so much more
In
organized, so
this.
much more strategic than the United States. And you have to recognize that they're going to be the global leader, particularly as our civilization, as our society is melting down and collapsing. It is the Chinese that look like they're going to be the forerunners after us, that they're going to be leading the international system. And it's clear they're reworking the international system now. The sort of opportunity that we had in the midst of the aftermath of the Second World War is kind of what we're seeing the Chinese take the lead in the aftermath of the Trump administration, because the
We
Trump
hope
administration.
there is one.
Uh, so that's what's happening. We note the Chinese and the Russians are also fueling um, um, internal incohesion in the United States, civil unrest. These are all things the Chinese and the Russians are hoping for, and of course that's working magnificently well. And and
Oh,
and and they're hoping for that because as the United States politics becomes increasingly deranged, it again gives room for China to renegotiate the global order.
okay. Where's the question from? Oh, it was a good one. Hang on just a second. Oh, here we go. All right. Lincoln Newsreel. Question: As batteries move to sodium ion tech, will fires be as difficult to deal with?
Actually, that's a really good question.
She's
I
brilliant. Of course, she asks
I
great
want to
questions.
say that
That's
it would be
Kelly.
much easier to deal with, but I have not actually done my research into that question. So while it is a great question, I don't want to sound too ignorant in my answer of
We
it.
could follow up on this
Yeah,
show. I mean, there's
that's
no
actually a
reason
really good
why.
question.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I'm going to bring her up again because
Yeah.
under Biden, the first meeting, the Chinese guy said to the Biden guy, "You are negotiating like you have something to offer, but you don't." So I get the feeling the problem was U.S. racism.
Yes, yes, yes,
Ooh,
yes. And
yeah.
so I become a little hesitant to say that, but especially when I was in investing, I used to think to myself, why can't these guys see that the Chinese are formidable, that they have incredible R&D programs, that they're developing these trade relationships, that they're actually making real progress in their society? And I realize it's because of white American supremacy, that we, as
Yeah.
particularly
Thank.
white business elite minded Americans, think that because we are Americans, that fact alone means that we have to be number one, that we are, just
Yes.
because we are Americans, better than everyone else. And that's,
It's
you
what we
know,
grew up with. We grew up
so
with that.
the Chinese don't have that propaganda. They don't have the propaganda that the United States is number one in the world. That's not their propaganda,
No.
and so they don't succumb to that. And in the United States, I think we told ourselves that the Chinese can't innovate. All they can do is copycat. And now what we're starting to see in the
What is.
theater, in the healthcare theater, in the construction theater. By the way, the Chinese can't copy our high-speed rails because we don't have any of those for them to copy.
No, we have Amtrak. Yeah.
Who do they copy for electric cars? Because there wasn't a huge electric car industry before the Chinese. So it's funny, but that's how the United States tried to deal with the rise of China, saying, well, it's not really happening. And then, of course, we got woken up to their military parade where our military analysts are saying, no, this is happening and it's happening now.
We also like to think we're free to have whatever we want when we want it, like spoiled children. Well,
That's
and
right.
and
And
we
that's
have no
why
impulse control. We have no impulse control.
I've called this administration the frat boy presidency, right? Because that's what's
Are you
happening.
fat shaming?
No, I said frat. I
Oh,
said frat.
frat boy. I'm like, here, frat boy. I'm like, okay. Well, we know what Trump looks like.
Yeah.
The frat
He's
boy.
not the slimmest guy either, but I said frat boy presidency.
Very
So this is
good.
the frat boy presidency where You just have
Perfect.
daddy's credit card, and daddy's credit
Yeah.
card gets you out of trouble, and you do what you want on daddy's credit card. The Chinese have no time for that. Like I say, these are serious negotiators. These are serious policy makers. They come together every 5 years and look at a strategic national plan in terms of energy, in terms of education, in terms of infrastructure requirements, in
Yep.
terms of military. They are simply leagues over the United States and our governmental apparatus. And that's what I mean to talk about here. And that's why I think that ultimately the Chinese, you're absolutely right. In both with the Biden administration and with the Trump administration, the American negotiators under Antony Blinken and now Marco Rubio.
Ugh.
Um, I'm sorry,
Little Marco.
even the cast of American diplomats are so lowbrow that it's just incredible because we used to be the envy of the world. When you saw the American diplomats arrive on the scene, everyone would
Mm.
be in awe and in anticipation, and now we're the laughing stock.
No,
You
now
know,
Greece has Kimberly Gargoyle. Yeah. Okay, I have Oliver. Love you, Oliver. Unlike lithium ion batteries, damaged sodium ion batteries typically don't enter thermal runaway or catch on fire. Testing shows they remain stable even when punctured, crushed, or otherwise physical.
and
Ooh,
that was my when I was kind of answering. That's why I said my
okay.
suspicion was that they'd be easier to handle in terms of fire than ion, but I didn't know the specifics on that. But that does seem to match up with
Ollie.
things I've read.
Okay.
So yeah, so that looks like a very
Perfect.
good tidbit there. Thank
Perfect. All right. Here's now, this is out of the blue, but TR, do you know that China has strategic sugar reserve? They lack a great many resources.
you. Okay,
Wow.
sorry,
No.
my
Let's see your dog. Come on. Come on. Let's see your
okay.
dog.
Hey
Look at this.
Nala, can you
Let's
look
see.
up for the there?
Oh, look at your beautiful dog.
All
Oh,
right, all
that's
right.
wonderful. That's makes us happy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
But
gonna go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. But not only do the Chinese have strategic sugar reserves, energy reserves, soybean reserves, I mean, they do this because they understand, and that's why they've been very little threatened by the Chinese maneuvers here in the trade war. And we depend so much more on the Chinese than they depend on us, which is why this has been incredible.
Incredible. Okay. Great dog. Yeah, great dog. Lovely
Thank
dog.
you.
I wish I could bring one of my cats in, but you see, when you have eight of them right now at that, you can't. One's
You're right.
going, but I mean, they're as in my they're old. They're from old to young, so it's not that hard. Like people think, are you crazy? No, it's not that hard. Okay, but they have, Raleigh says again, they have three-quarters of the rare earth. Well, we showed that. I already talked about that. Yeah. All right. Can we? Does anybody have anything else that's pressing about this issue? And we can just. Oh, well, we have to ask this one. Ollie, are you, Antonio? Are you doing Movember?
I don't know what that
All right,
is.
I'll send him the stuff. My brother does it. I'll send you the stuff. I'll let you know what it is. But
Okay.
oh, and one more comment on Korea. South Korea also protested so hard when the leader tried to declare martial law. All adult men have had to do 2 years mandatory military service. They can't be easily pushed around. Yeah, they're also getting tough. We're learning. I mean, what
Oh
happened
yeah.
here? What happened here with the ICE and the South Korean workers that were training American workers was an embarrassment around seen around the world. I don't know how anybody takes what is he saying? Orange Schittler is alive next. If he's alive next year, there'll be no midterms. All right, all right. That's another show too. That's
Yeah.
like
I
pretty.
will say that for another
Yeah,
show.
that's
I'm not.
definitely pretty scary. All right, I would like to move on a little bit. I have this stupid little video I found. I didn't make this. It's probably some dumbass AI thing, but I'm gonna show it anyway. Let me set it up. I'm gonna show it anyway, and because it'll get
Donald
us
Trump
it'll get us ready, and we'll talk for like 15 minutes about this.
Donald Trump is tearing down the east wing of the White House to build a golden ballroom. But here's what they're not telling you. Right under that east wing is a bunker designed to survive a nuclear attack. Now, CBS quietly reported that the military is rebuilding that bunker, while Trump claims he's raised $350 million from private donors to fund the ballroom. Why would the military be involved in a ballroom? And why would a private donor give Trump's team $130 million for the military? It's starting to look less like decoration and more like preparation. Trump's been terrified of protests. After that Joe's Seafood incident where Code Pink called him Hitler of our time. Now he's building a golden fortress above a secret bunker. Is this about luxury or fear? Because dictators in history rebuilt palaces when they planned to never leave. Look beneath the surface. There's always more than they want you to see.
Okay. So that was just this little thing I found, and I thought, you know what? I didn't make my own. So I wanted to talk about this because, of course, there's so much going on around this, around and the money that's being donated, what's underneath. So I had something I don't
Well, I will
necessarily.
tell
Yeah.
you this.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
tell you
Yeah.
this. I've said this for since the beginning of the first Trump administration, is that Trump does believe in climate change, right? This is a man who has spent now millions of dollars in protecting his Gulf assets around the world from the ravages and impacts of climate change. It is theater for his base. It's red meat for his base to talk about how it's not real.
Hmm.
Elon Musk is a huge, huge believer in climate
Well, we
change.
knew that. Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of what's happening is that the rich, as I've stated before in our last show, have kind of given up on the public response to climate change, and their response is to essentially go into their own enclaves and let again socialize the loss, right? So the losses of climate change are going to be socialized, and they're going to try to use their private monies and apparently raping the treasury to compound resources for themselves. So I don't doubt any of that.
Okay. Well, what's going on with this whole thing is the donors. Now they're, for this ballroom, but we know what's underneath it is that it was a command center. And Trump went down there during the first administration when he was afraid of the protesters. But it is now these people that are, let's see, the list: Sheldon Adelson, Miriam Adelson, Blackstone, the Blackstone CEO, Steven Schwartzman, oil tycoon Harold Hamm, cryptocurrency billionaires Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary. These are all people that are they're donating it, but there's something wrong with this. This is our government. There's something very, very wrong. And it was, he was saying, oh, it's a small building. Trump was saying, and we had to take down after he lied to everybody. But it is one of the most substantial alterations to the White House in modern history. And it's just, to me, it's insanity what's happening, but
It's
it's
very gaudy.
it's
It's
gross
very decadent.
and it's
It
corrupt.
is very, well, of course. I mean,
Hmm.
that is like a headline description for almost anything that Donald Trump does. These donations, it's a little different than the inaugural donations that he got from corporate America. And
Hmm.
very transactional president, right? So we know that if people are donating money to this project, it's because they think or believe or know that they have something in return coming for them. That's the way that this president operates. That's how this president's been operating. What exactly that looks like, we will only find out here,
Right.
I'm sure, in the coming months and years as this administration continues to. Um, well, you know what? Can you bring up that picture back again?
Yeah.
because I think that picture is so representative for what this administration is doing to the United States.
It's collapse of everything, right? It is. It's
So,
just it's what's happening. It's, what's for dinner. Watch the White House.
and we're going to paper over it with this gaudy golden.
Awful.
Yeah, and it is exactly, I in my younger days I thought I was being cynical when I would make jokes saying that during the collapse of our civilization you're going to see shiny new plazas go up at the same time that people are starving. But that's literally
Here
what's
we
going
are.
on. People are starving in the streets, people are dying from absence of health care, and we're building a ballroom.
Yeah.
And this is a huge thing for the president. At the same time, we are officially, I want to state this as a historian, we are officially in a civil war right now. Democratic political leaders in Democratic states have now said, given their domestic state authorities the right to arrest ICE agents,
Yes.
federal agents, if they break the law. I mean, that is we're everything but shooting at each other right now. And this is absolutely incredible for this to be happening. And of course, I support that absolutely. If federal agents are breaking laws, they most certainly should be apprehended and arrested. But I mean, you've now had this administration come out, I believe, that Nancy Pelosi is under federal investigation.
Investigation. And so is they're putting the Biden under. I mean, it's ridiculous. You when the whole time with the Biden crime family, and you look at everything, Don Jr. and his involvement in these corporations that are getting contracts for federal contracts. It is
These crypto
insane.
scams.
Yep,
I mean, it's everything with this administration. This
that's right,
administration,
Wanda. It's
it is
disgusting.
disgusting. It is beyond disgusting. This is the most criminal administration in American history.
Yep.
And we have a Republican Party that has acquiesced at every single corruption. Not to forget, and we cannot forget this, the Epstein files.
Oh
I mean,
well, forget
this is
those.
absolutely
Let's see if I.
incredible that Speaker Moses Mike Johnson of
I made
oh
that.
my God, that's so funny. Um, but that Speaker Mike Johnson, it is so ugly. But Speaker Mike Johnson is in part making sure that who is the congresswoman that he's refusing to swear in?
Oh, Adelina Guadalajara from Arizona. I believe that's her
Okay,
last name.
okay, right. He's refusing to have her sworn in, and this is in part why he's not interested in negotiating with the Democrats to get the government back on, because he doesn't want to have those Epstein files released because it's going to create such fissures in the Republican Party. And Republicans are going to have to, people who are going to defend the president are going to have to come out and say, yeah, we're defending a pedophile and we're proud of that. I don't know if I can use that word online or not.
Oh,
Um,
these days, P
but
the file your nails. Yeah.
so there's a lot of that going on. Of course, the corruption at the DOJ, the corruption at the FBI, is just absolutely incredible. As I've stated earlier in this show, with the president now killing what appears to be fishermen, this is absolutely a
Yeah.
horrendously corrupt
Here it is.
administration.
Grahava. Now listen, I'm going to tell you, you cannot on X right now. I got a warning because I used a meme that I had, and it said treason with some of the pictures of the people in the administration, and I got a warning on that. Yet on X, there's all kinds of disgusting anti-Semitic tropes and gross pictures and sex and all that, but I couldn't use the word treason.
And
It
that's another thing. This administration, right? They don't want us to call them Nazis. They don't want us to call them
Well, it's
fascists.
American fascism.
Yet you
It's
have um, Speaker Mike Johnson saying that Chuck Schumer is a legislative terrorist.
yeah,
You
it's
have
horrible.
Stephen Miller say that judges that adjudicate and rule against Trump are engaged in a legal insurrection
Hmm.
against the United States. You just had recently a Trumper talk about was arrested for attempting assassination of Hakeem Jeffries in the House, and the president not condemn that. So this is a very serious, and of course, when President Trump was asked about the Democratic representatives, the Hortons, when they were killed, he said he had no idea that it even happened. So this is a president who is tacitly of approving violence against people on the right or
Hmm.
excuse me, on the left, and when
Yep.
it happens, he pretends that it doesn't happen. The sort of language that he uses and his administration uses. As I stated before, Stephen Miller's wife said that Stephen Miller wakes up and yells in the mirror about how he's going to destroy the liberals.
Oh, he's sick.
These people are incredibly violent. They're incredibly unhealthy. And that's why I said the Chinese, they're looking at this certainly as an opportunity to rearrange global politics while the United States is certainly imploding on itself.
Okay, here's another thing I wanted to bring up. This is about the $130 million that is being donated by Timothy Mellon to supposedly pay the military. It is illegal. You can't earmark what a government donation goes to. Using the money violates the Anti Deficiency Act. He is one of the largest MAGA donors. It is an obvious bribe. Mellon compared black people on assistance to slaves, called scientists terrorists, and donated to anti-vax program. 130 million is enough to pay each active duty soldier $100. Now, so this is illegal. But now I'm looking at this and I looked it all up and there's a whole bunch of stuff on it. But consequences. Violators may face administrative sanctions such as suspension or removal from office. Okay, so that means the president, who is a federal employee, does that mean he could? Because this is wrong. It's prohibition against doing this kind of thing. Or does the Supreme Court immunity BS say that? Oh, I don't see how that could be. How he could be have immunity. This is not something he's doing on his job. They're taking money and they're allocating it how they want against the Anti Deficiency Act. He can get prosecuted. If they don't pick up on this, the Democrats.
Well, it is very difficult to see how the president could be held responsible here because, as you've already stated, the Supreme Court has granted this president immense power, saying that any official act of the presidency does fall
But
under that
but how is taking money and allocating it against this Anti Deficiency Act legal
an
in
official
any way?
act. It's not about the legality of the act. For the Supreme Court, it's this question of its officiality. So,
Yeah.
if it's an official act by the president, then that's an act that's going to be pardonable. That he would have immunity if he was to engage in that act on the official basis of the United States. And this would be an official basis. It is for the military service members. And so, in that sense, there's some official capacity here with him being the commander in chief as well.
True.
So I can certainly see this argument, the court saying, it might be illegal, but he also has immunity.
Or they'll blame
Uh,
it. They'll blame it on one of the assholes in his administration, like Russell Vogt, who is the OMB guy, who has the ability to take that money and
But I
move
think
it around.
I think the danger here, though, goes well beyond the legality of the act, which, of
Sure.
course, I agree that this is horrifically illegal. But notice there that last contention, that last bullet point, that only $100 are going to go to per service member. This is a PR stunt, and this is
Sure it is.
about. And I don't like to talk this way, and I don't like to scare people, but this is we are watching a slow coup d'état. We are watching a slow takeover of our government, and part of that is of the military. How many government officials, how many military officials at the Pentagon now have either left, retired early, have resigned because of the things of the Trump administration that
The
Pete
good
Hegseth,
guys. Yeah.
and that scares me more than
Yeah.
anything.
Instead of
Um,
staying and fighting, they're leaving because it's just so heinous to them. They want their pensions and they're out. Maybe
yeah,
they're even leaving the country because they're getting
and as they leave,
yeah.
they're being replaced by loyalists, and that really does mean in the next year, in the next 2 years, we are going to be in a totally, totally different place because all the people who were in these bureaucratic positions, whether they be military or in the civil service, all of those people that resisted the Trump administration, all those people who would think twice before doing something the Trump administration would ask them to do, they're gone. The only people that we're going to have left are people who don't think twice and or who are gun ho to carry out the
You
acts of
know.
this administration, and that scares me so much because this Supreme Court has authorized this president, this administration to federalize an army of mass thugs who are without due process able to take people, and I want to just say people, not illegal immigrants, because the problem here is you can charge anyone. I could charge Sandy right now of being an illegal, and if I just snatch her off of the streets and deport her, then there's no way to prove that she's not illegal, because in order to prove that you're not illegal is through due process. And so what this court has done has supercharged the ability of this presidency to target anyone that they
Yeah.
find opposition.
And we're doing
Um,
this little show, and I actually we're live not just on YouTube. I took the gamble and went on X because I have to think there's people there that are rational thinkers that want to hear this kind of information. But we're not
well,
doing, anything illegal
well,
yet.
all of that. I mean, what legal is? I mean, we've had this administration now and say we're taking names, right? We're using Palantir, we're using our technological services, and we're taking names of anyone who's saying anything against this administration, who's saying anything anti-capitalistic, anything anti-American. And I'm sure there are people who could blacksmith anything that I've said tonight into any one of those categories.
Me too.
Anti
Me too.
anti-Christian. My whole channel's anti-Christian.
Well,
To a
that's
certain degree.
why I
That.
I'm coming up. I'm working on climate communication safety. And I'm not going to put it up, but I'm going to open my document. So if something happens, we have it's a checklist and it's rapid response protocol. When unexpectedly media or political pressure arises, respond quickly, calmly, and consistently. Acknowledge the situation, messaging templates, digital and security checklists, media response coordination, have a lawyer. I mean, I'm thinking of these things, and I'm not even anybody that has a big, a big. But those IHIP,
Well,
they already with IHIP, they're already threatening them on on X. They already threatened
yeah.
to sue
Well,
them.
and that's what we're going to continue to see, right? This administration has no problem threatening to sue media. This administration has no problem weaponizing the whole of the government apparatus against individuals, trying to censor individuals, sue individuals, reprimand individuals any way they can. The whole Jimmy Fallon incident that just happened. So yeah, I mean, this is real, and things are going to continue to heat up, particularly as we see the good people who are in the government step down and retire and resign.
Ollie is in the UK. You would not believe how worried we are about you guys.
And you have every reason to be where I am. I am very worried about the United States right now, more than I've ever been, more than I was under the post 9/11 wars with the Bush administration. It's horrific oppression and assault on our civil liberties, using the war on terrorism to do that. This goes so much further than that. And we have a court that is so willing at this time, and even the circuit court up in Oregon, in Washington State. I forget what circuit that is, but they're ruling that Trump had the right to send the National Guard in. I'm in part thinking if they ruled that way in order to stop this from getting up to the Supreme Court, because if this were to get to the Supreme Court, then it would be the law of the land. And so one way to stop that from adjudicating itself, percolating itself up to the Supreme Court is to simply rule in the administration's favor. I mean, this is really scary,
Yeah.
that we have our National Guards being used against us on the First Amendment issue. Trump he's already said we don't have a First Amendment anymore in this country. And so this is
Well,
where
to
the
burn flags, but that's just a veiled
well,
threat.
I mean, look at where this is going. The nationalization of the National Guards and their deployments are in cities that have showed disfavor to the president, that are protesting against the president. So this is not about flags. This is about the First Amendment altogether.
Absolutely. Well, I do think about it. I am an activist at heart. I'm doing this. I said it weeks ago that I could just say, okay, I got my channel back, but look what's happening. And do I just get off of everything, read books, live my life? I'm an old lady. I have disabilities. Do I just live my life and shut up? I mean, I'm already too far gone in it anyway, as you
For me,
are.
yeah, I mean, this is the final showdown. Um, we knew this was coming. We have to do all we can to continue to inform people of what the truth is. The administration wants us to stop talking.
I
It
know.
wants us to stop engaging. It wants us to be turned off, and it wants us to not say anything. And that's why I'm so proud of the No Kings protest, because over 7 million Americans came out in defiance of this administration to say this is not who we are, and that we're going to stand up against you. We're going to stand up against ICE. We're going to stand up against this team, this cast of villains he calls an administration. And there are a few things in our history that made me as proud as to see so many Americans staying together and saying that you're not alone out there, to the different communities that are under siege.
I was just thinking to Sandy, if they touch your cats, don't go down without a fight. I know. I'm like, what are they going to do? Put my cats in pussy jail? Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
oh,
I mean, it's craziness. It's craziness. I mean, this is a tiny little channel, but my gosh, it's so sad. And I'm just hoping that the people that are watching us over on X are like minded people that are getting a message from us talking about first, the real issues that are happening with energy in China and all that without understanding we are not sympathizers of anything. We're giving you facts. But here, the second part is we're talking about, well, where we live. This is where we live. This is how messed up things are. And it is very hard. Okay, I want to do another flush. And I've decided tonight we're going to flush ice. Bye bye. Environmental Coffee
yeah,
House. Flush of the day. We are
because
flushing ice.
my fear about ICE is, yes, of course, their initial task and job is being used against illegal immigrants who are here, undocumented immigrants who are here, and they are doing that to horrific effect.
I know.
Um, but make no mistake, the same force, and the president has already talked about this out loud. will be used against American citizens as well. And without due process in these detainments and arrests and deportations, it's impossible then to make those adjudications that people are actually legally here. And then we have a Supreme Court now that's going to be taking up birthright citizenship. I mean, these are issues that go back to the end of the Civil War in the United States. These are issues that go back to really the United States' inability to deal with people who look like me being here. And now all of that is back up on the table again. We're living in a society where gun federal thugs are going to be asking you if your papers are legitimate or not. And if you don't have the right answers or the right papers,
Yeah.
you might be thrown in the back of some vehicle and never seen or heard from again. So to me, this is super serious, and
Yeah, it
um,
is.
it,
I,
it it horrifies me that there are people right now. It's mostly people of Latino descent that are living in so much fear and so much horror that just tomorrow, they might be on the porch waiting for their daughter to come home from school, and then mass agents hunt them down and grab them, and
it's
they never see
horrible.
their family again.
Yeah, and when everybody does get crazy, Trump and whoever he brings down there, the billionaires will have their own bunkers. But I did a show, Bunker Babies, and I'm going to
Yeah,
update it. I'm going to update it because it's things have changed since I
yeah.
did that show. But yeah, Bunker Baby billionaires. But yeah, it's definitely changed. Tommyist has a question. How do you think American masses will react when their healthcare premiums double or triple in early 2026? Do you think Billy Ray will still want to lick Trump's bungie hole?
So this is what's also incredible about this shutdown, this administration. So right now, the Republicans, of course, are in complete power across our government apparatus. The Republicans own the House, they own the Senate, they own the presidency. Not relevant, but still, they own the Supreme Court as well. And this government shutdown has everything to do with the Republican priorities. The Democrats are trying to fight hard to make sure that $800 billion in Medicaid funds to the healthcare system in the United States does not come through. Our best healthcare statisticians have told us that if the $800 billion is of cuts are enacted, over 14 million people will lose
Yeah.
their health care insurance, and we're going to see an additional 50,000 people die in the absence of health care every year on
Somebody
top
just
of
wrote me this.
on,
2,700 a month is what it's going up to for this person.
yeah.
I
I mean,
don't
this is
know for
this
me
is
yet. I don't even know for me yet.
yeah. So think about that. That's more than $30,000 a year for
It's
that
insane.
individual. So people, I mean, if we have an international audience, any at all,
Yeah, we
they
do.
can
We have
imagine.
Canadians, UK here. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Then you guys, I mean, this you don't understand what we're talking about. But premiums are a monthly subscription fee
Hmm.
that you pay in order to have access to the healthcare system. And if you don't pay this monthly subscription, then well, you don't have
Right.
healthcare. You could die in the absence thereof. And certainly every year in the United States, 70,000 people die every single year in the absence of healthcare. And this is not a category that exists in your countries. If you look at the statistics across the OECD, that's the Organization of Economically Development Cooperation, countries in that category don't
Hmm.
have this issue of people dying in the absence of healthcare because, of course, they have national universal healthcare systems where all of their citizenries have
Like
access. In,
Argentina,
in
like
the United
Israel.
Right. And in the United States, we are going in the opposite direction of that.
Again.
Um, we 800, almost $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts. And again, we're likely now to see something like 130,000 Americans die in the absence of health care every year. And then also, what we'll see
Snap.
is there will be additional, absolutely, that's a separate question, but also the SNAP benefits which those are food aid assistant benefits for people who don't understand what SNAP are. But also, in the United States, we're looking at the problem with the healthcare pools in general, because as healthy people are left in these pools, and they're seeing their premiums skyrocket, they're
Yep.
going to decide to get out of those pools, and say, I'm not paying 30, 40,000 dollars a year for healthcare access, and so they'll leave those pools, and then those monies will again have to be deferred to the people who are in those pools, increasing premiums further. So there is a healthcare death spiral coming up in the United States that will in fact impact all American citizens after January 1, 26. Healthcare premiums are set to double and perhaps triple for some folks, or even higher. So this is a huge healthcare crisis, and all but the most rich Americans will be able to afford
Yep.
health care after this.
God.
And the Republicans, they're fighting. What the Republicans are saying is, we absolutely will not open up this government unless we can all agree that 50,000 Americans should die every year in the absence of health care, to cover the tax fall that we created
Yeah,
by
but they'd
giving
rather
tax.
blame it. It's the Democrats. It's Schumer. Well, I mean, it's just
Well, no,
the
they're right. They are
yeah,
right.
but
What they're saying is,
it is because we want these things for the American
yeah.
people.
So that they're absolutely right. The
Oh,
Republicans are
God.
right. The Republicans are right that the Democrats will not agree to kill 50,000
Right.
people a year in order to open up the government.
Or
And so what the
more.
Republicans, or more, I mean, the Republicans would love more. But the Republicans, and so that's what's happening, is that these are the legislative Taliban, not the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats are so docile. That's their problem. But absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. It is it's pretty awful. It is. I mean, what else can we say? So that's why the other day when I did my show, I did have a lot of support networks like the Good Grief Network, like other networks, because I will probably start putting those kind of links in every show for climate anxiety, or even, this kind of anxiety. There was a, I don't know if I took it, I made the clip, but there was a post that a psychologist made that most of the anxiety and depression that they're seeing is definitely related to the the situation we're in. It's exacerbated, and it's
Absolutely. People are facing
I'm
an
in it every
onslaught. I mean,
day.
we all are. I wake up every day and I can't believe the things that I'm seeing. I can't
Every
believe
day.
the things that I'm hearing. I can't believe the things
I know.
that's happening in this country, and I have to thank God that the worst of it hasn't come to my door yet. But of course, that's no welcome when you see friends and families and communities being ripped apart, torn apart, and you
Horrible.
see that there doesn't appear to be any safeguards. So this is real. This is an all hands on deck moment. I continue to say that. Um, in the state of North Carolina, the president has called our state, our representatives in our General Assembly, and they've agreed that they should gerrymander the state to write black and brown people out of representation in our state. And we just did that last week. So there is a race now to redistrict, gerrymander the hell out of our. I mean, it's really thrown in. I don't want to say this, and I understand the gravity of saying things like this. I just now no longer have faith in the American democratic system anymore. I don't have faith in the integrity of our elections, even if we were to have them.
I mean, I want to build a gigantic driveway gate, but that's not going to stop anybody. I mean, I don't even leave here as it is. All right. Well, we have been quite a while, and now that
Yeah,
everybody's
we've gone
all
over an hour and a
upset,
half.
and now everybody's all upset. But, like I said, there are links and organizations and people that you can get in touch with if you need help. And of course, this community here, we may be talking about difficult issues. And I did my climate show the other night because that is a dire situation. That is the overarching situation of our time. I mean, really, is climate and environmental degradation. We're losing everything. That is. But yet we have to live down here every day regardless of that's going on. But we need, and when we talk about the energy and all that, I do believe that because I do believe we need to, we should continue to look for alternatives to inhaling fossil fuels and burning. And we do. We do. We can't stop it. These companies and corporations, you'll see a COP. It'll be corporate, but there'll be a lot of renewable energy companies. There'll be a lot of corporations there that are selling their wares for sure, that are worldwide, maybe not American, but they're worldwide. We can't stop it. So if we embrace it, like I have with battery technology and solar panels and things like that, it just makes you feel a little bit better.
And the problem I think people are missing, at least from my point of view, especially with the climate transition, is, and this is something that we've said on this channel a long time ago. We've been doing this for over a decade. That the transition was never going to be easy, and the transition itself wasn't the answer to the ecological crisis. The transition is mostly a response to the climate crisis, and those are two separate crises.
Absolutely.
Of course, they
Polycrisis.
intertwine, but they are separate crises. And obviously, the renewable energy doesn't do as much for the ecological crises as it does for the climate crisis.
No, it makes
right?
it worse in a sense. I mean,
Yeah,
mining and digging and solar farms and all that. You're
so
always weighing the cost
right, and it's a
benefit.
delicate, and that's a thing that our species is learning and is going to learn. Is a delicate balance being on this planet, and if you don't walk delicately, you won't be walking at all. So, with that said, I do want to leave a little bit off on a positive note. What the No Kings protest taught me is that no matter how dark things are, because those 7 million people are representative of literally tens of
Of
millions,
millions.
maybe hundreds of millions more people than them, okay? And when you get to a pivotal threshold of something like 5 or 7 million people, you really know that the blood is boiling in the country. And that's what we need right now. We need people who are aware, who see what's going on, who's calling it out and saying, you know what, even if the president, even if his administration, his thugs are going to threaten me, I'm still going to say the truth. I'm still going to show up to a No Kings protest, and I'm still going to say what I'm going to say about the president, because
Yep.
that's how we take this on, is speaking truth to power relentlessly.
Right on. And I am going to end with a song I'm going to put up that I got permission to use called We Dissent. And I'm going to end with that. Because it will make us feel good when we feel pretty scared or shitty or fear or unhappy or depressed or whatever, all the emotions, but we have to feel them because we can't hide from them. And like I said, we're here. This is our little community and our little slice, Environmental Coffee House. Thank you, Antonio, so very much. Thank you, everybody. It was, wow. I like starting at 8. I did announce that we were going to be doing 8 o'clock. So I know that there were some people that were late because they're used to 9. But we're trying to fit and find the best schedule for our shows. So 8 o'clock worked because it's still not even 10 o'clock and we're going to be done. All right. I'm going to get this up. Good night, everyone. We love you.
They call it hate, 'cause they're afraid of the people they betrayed. We march with hearts that still believe in the promises they now unweave. They wave the flag and twist the truth, sell our future, steal our youth. But the streets now hum with liberty's song, for we've been quiet way too long. We dissent for the dream they sold and broke, for every word the liars spoke. We dissent for the truth they twist and bend. We won't let the story end. We dissent for the love of this land, not their greed, not their command. We dissent 'cause freedom's not their toy, and we won't let them destroy. They weaponize the law like kings, turn justice into puppet strings. They say be silent, stay in line, while they rob the public blind. But courage don't come from a throne, it lives in voices not their own. The power's ours, it always was, and we'll rise again, because we dissent for the flag they claim to own, for the truth that we've outgrown. We dissent for the rights they try to kill, for the fire that burns still. We dissent for the soldiers, teachers, kin, for the fight we're still within. We dissent not out of hate but care, for the soul that's still out there. They can smear, they can sneer, but the people persevere. Every chant, every sign is America in its prime. From Selma to Stonewall to today, our descent is the American way. We dissent for the light they dim with lies, for the hope they demonize. We dissent for the heart of the free, for what it means to we the people, not me. We stand, we shout, we pray, till justice has its day. We dissent